Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we are talking about dealing with broken D&D characters. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I love this. I love this topic so much. This is one of my favorite topics, and this was prompted by a request by Kyle Wright 9002. Kyle Wright, thank you so much for asking this. They basically said video idea, allowing players to have broken characters like Coffeelock and such, and how to balance the encounters and villains. Okay, first of all, I had to look up what Coffeelock meant. And when I read it, I was like, oh, I see exactly where this is going. And I love it. I love it so much. But before we dive into it, and I'm going to tell you what Coffeelock is. I'm going to tell you exactly how I deal with it. It took me about half a second to understand exactly how I would deal with this. I have dealt with so many of these things in my games, and I'm gonna just tell you straight up. Before I do that, though, I have to say thank you, Kyle Wright 9002, for requesting this. If you have a video request, please drop it in the comments for the GM Philosopher. I will answer your questions. I keep a whole document of questions, and every single day, almost every day, I try every day, I record a video answering some questions. And lately, that's all I've been doing is answering questions. And I love it. I love it so much because when I get questions, it lets me know what people are thinking about in the community and it lets me help them better. So I love it so much. Secondly, if you have a response to Kyle Wright's question here about allowing players to have broken characters like Coffeelock and such, if you have an approach to this, if you've dealt with this, please drop that in a comment. Let us know. I would love to hear your insight. I would love to hear your comments about this because I'm always interested in what people are doing to help make D&D better. I believe D&D is the best game in the world. I love TTRPGs, and while I could survive without D&D, for sure, I love D&D so much. I think it's amazing and is my favorite game in the world, and I think it's the best TTRPG out there. That might be a controversial opinion. If you believe that's a controversial opinion, drop a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear what you think. Tell me what you think the best TTRPG is, and I would love to hear it because I've played a few of them. I've not played all of them, that's for sure. Let me know why you think D&D isn't the best. Tell me what you think the best is. And I will listen and I will comment back and maybe I'll try it out. Who knows? All right. With that being said, let's jump into this. All right. Listen. First of all, we have to talk about what Coffeelock is. Now, this is going to tell you how old school I am. This is a 5e thing. I had no concept of this. But once I looked this up, I will tell you that I have seen this before. There have been things in D&D times past that have delved into this territory, okay? Now, I'm going to link this article down in the description. I have to give credit to Andrew Girdwood, who published this in 2018 on geeknative.com. Andrew, thank you for this. This is what I looked up to help me understand what Coffeelock was, okay? And I'm going to read this to you because actually, to be honest, probably all of you know what this is. But all right, what is Coffeelock? A Coffeelock is a multi-class sorcerer warlock built to use the flexible casting rules of the sorcerer in conjunction with the packed magic ability of the warlock. Basically, flexible casting. You can use your sorcery points to gain additional spell slots or sacrifice spell slots to gain additional sorcery points. You learn other ways to use your sorcery points as you reach higher levels. Then you combine this with packed magic. To cast one of your warlock spells at first level or higher, you must expend a spell slot. You regain all expended spell slots when you finish a short or long rest. There is no rule in D&D 5e that says you must take a long rest. Okay. Therefore, a character with level 2 in Warlock and a level 2 in Sorcerer can regain all of their Warlock spell slots after a short rest and then sacrifice them to gain additional sorcery points. With that being said, going back to flexible casting, creating spell slots, you can transform unexpected sorcery points into one spell slot as a bonus action on your turn. The creating spell slots table shows the cost of creating a spell slot of a given level. You can create spell slots no higher than level than 5th. These sorcery points can then be transformed back into spell slots. The result, effectively infinite spell slots for the course of an adventure. Now, of course, it takes some time to build up. And of course, you have to take short rests to refresh it. But the idea is the Coffeelock Sorcerer Warlock will end up having increasingly more spell slots to the point where they will have infinite spell slots at some point in the future. they will quickly overshadow the rest of the party in power level and will basically become crazy, crazy powerful and overpowered and will threaten to throw off the balance of all of your encounters. How do you deal with this is the question. All right. First of all, Kyle Wright, 9002, great question. This is a big challenge. And, right away, I've seen a few tweets about this. In this article published by Geek Native, and I have to share these. Jeremy Crawford said, yep, that works. Similarly, a Paladin Warlock can use Warlock slots for Divine Smite. Warlocks have so few slots on purpose. And then Jeremy Crawford also said, DMs, if you allow multiclassing in your game and someone is tempted to abuse the combination of flexible casting and pact magic, remember this. One way to read the multiclass rules is that your pact magic slots are useless for any non-warlock thing besides casting spells. All right. Controversial opinion here. This might be the first video where I actually give an opinion that people might actually hardcore disagree with. I disagree with the whole sentiment behind these tweets. I disagree with the sentiment against overpowered characters like this. And let me tell you why. I'm not afraid of overpowered characters. I'm not afraid of min-maxed characters. I'm not afraid of characters who quote unquote break the game. I am not afraid of them. And let me tell you why. I'm going to tell you exactly why. And once again, this might be a controversial opinion. I guess I can't help myself. I'm delving into territory where I probably differ a lot from a lot of people. Right away, the concept of the Coffeelock, Warlock, Sorcerer bothers me literally 0%. And let me tell you why. By definition, the whole point of it is that you can get all this stuff without taking long rests. Okay. Now, getting a whole bunch of spell slots, this is overpowered. And there's no doubt that any overpowered combination in your games is going to cause you some trouble balancing encounters. This is true. This is absolutely true. With that, I will say this is a necessary evil of playing with min-maxing characters, okay? Or min-maxing players. Min-maxing players are going to figure out how to break the game as best they can. That's their nature. Power gamers, they're going to figure out how to break the game as much as they can. I have had players do it in the past. I one time had and I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here, but I one time had a situation where I had an artificer creating pot bots, and through a bunch of loopholes and through a bunch of quoted statements by me, they were able to prove that they could basically create pot bots, break those pot bots down to get more pot bot parts to create more pot bots with. And they were able to solve a sort of like resource issue with their pot bots, and they were able to get infinite resources. What did I say to this? I said, checks out to me. Sounds legit to me. You figured it out. Get it. Get it, man. Get it. Go make some pot bots. So I'm not afraid of this at all. And let me tell you why. It's because with great power comes great responsibility. And this always comes back in role-playing games. And I know that a lot of GMs struggle with this. And I'm going to tell you my approach to this. And I don't know how many GMs have come up with this kind of solution to this. I would ask you to drop it in the comments if you've used this solution before, or if you've solved it with a different solution. But here's my solution. If I have a player running Coffeelock, which I've never seen before, I had to literally look it up to figure out what it was. Here's my thing. Are they not taking long rests? How often are they not taking long rests? That's the first thing. Point number one. If they do not take long rests for a day, 2 days, 3 days, as a GM, I'm using common sense rules, exhaustion levels. That's one thing. And I will say that that's maybe kind of mean, but back in 3rd edition, there were exhaustion rules. Okay. And it was basically where you would take negatives to certain types of rolls if you incurred certain exhaustion levels. Now in 5e, I believe the exhaustion rules are a little different. Basically, you operate at a subpar level. So it's like if you're level 7, when you get to a certain level of exhaustion, you start to operate as if you are a level 6. I actually might be wrong about that, but I think that's how exhaustion runs in 5e. The reason I'm not 100% sure about that is because I still run exhaustion according to 3rd edition rules. If you get exhausted to a certain degree, all of your rolls are going to start having negatives. Now, you might ask, what difference does that make for the Coffeelock, Warlock, Sorcerer? The answer is probably very little. they're going to have so many spells. I mean, within 7 days, they're going to have so many spell slots. We're talking about short rest. How many short rests can you take in a day? 10. Okay. They're going to gain like a bunch of spell slots. They're so quickly going to have so many spells that it's going to be wild. The only restriction is going to be on level and the spells that they know, or the level of spells they can cast. But once you get to Fireball, if you're casting Fireball every turn and there's no limit to it, then what's going to stop you? The truth is, nothing's going to stop you if the GM is trying to run a balanced encounter, taking the other player's levels into account. So that's not how I would try to balance it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by running the encounters that are balanced for my party, and I'm going to let them wipe the floor. I'm going to let this Warlock Sorcerer wipe the floor with everything. I'm going to let them they're going to wreck. It's going to be a nightmare. They're going to fireball everything. Every single thing that faces the party is going to get like boom, 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 blown to smithereens by this Warlock Sorcerer. But it's going to come at a cost. And here's the balance. Over time, this character, if they do not take long rests, it's going to start to mess with their mind. Okay? It's going to start to mess with their mind. And I would even go a step further and to say, and you can run this how you want. I don't think I would do it this way. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. But even learning that many spells, having that many spell slots might start to mess with their mind. How much is the mortal body supposed to be able to deal with? How much can a mortal sorcerer or warlock actually deal with? If they are exploiting the natural order to get all of these spell slots, what kind of effect is that going to have on their mind? I'm telling you right now, it's not going to take but 7-ish days. Boom, visions start popping up. People from their past who have died, people from their future, they're going to start hearing voices. They're going to start having paranoia. People are going to start introducing themselves who are not real. They're going to start actually dealing with some delusional stuff. Why? Because they're pushing the limits of the mind to an extreme place. Why do you think there are limits on these things? The reason the warlock or the sorcerer or the wizard or anyone has any limits whatsoever is because there's a limit to what that mortal body can accomplish. And without some kind of like backing for breaking it, like maybe you get a magical new brain inserted, or you whatever. If you're a god, you may not have to worry about this. But the truth of the matter is that if you start to break this system, this is gonna come to price. Yes, you get great power, but you're also not going to know if Benjamin over here is real when he introduces himself to you at the tavern and says he has a big job for you. And there's going to be the whole issue of like navigating that. And then there's going to be the devil on your shoulder and the angel on your shoulder. You have these characters whispering things in your ears. You're going to have all kinds of this weird stuff. You're going to start seeing things that are not there. There are going to be delusions. There are going to be nightmares. You're going to have trouble discerning reality from fiction. Why? Because the mind is breaking. There might even be periods of time where you fail a constitution save and you blank out for periods of time. Okay. I have no issue like putting these types of role play scenarios onto a character who is doing something like this. Okay. And if a character has a problem with it, to me, this is role play. This is role play. This is, to me, a common sense result of breaking a system, stretching your mortal being to the limits. Okay. Now, with that being said, that's a small problem. Let's say that this warlock sorcerer is successful and they carry this on for a month. They have steamrolled parties of enemies. They have, worst case scenario, they've bullied the other players. They have just been a menace. Okay. They've been a menace in your game. There is only so much that can be done before they start to gain the attention of bigger, more dangerous beings than them. There are going to be otherworldly beings, maybe gods, maybe demons, maybe abyssal creatures, maybe big, powerful, maybe evil fae creatures, maybe paladins. It's only going to be a matter of time before people start to take notice and they start to single them out and they start to seek them out. Okay. When players become a certain power level, it starts to gain attention. In my example of the character who was able to create the infinite pot bot resource creation loop, oh, he created infinite pot bots, all right. And he was a menace for like 3-4 sessions. But then one day he walked in and there was a group of these pot bots. He like created this factory with the pot bots, created more pot bots. And so it was like this big thing. One day he came in and these pot bots, there was like a group of 6 of them were gambling, which is wild because they're not supposed to be sentient. They're supposed to be like these creatures who just obey at will. But he walked in and there were like 6 of them gambling. And when they noticed that he noticed them, they quickly got back in line and started to work again. He had gotten a little too big for his britches. The pot bots, there were so many of them. And there was so much magic and there was so much power in this that they started to create their own sentience and they started to rebel. And it turned out that they ended up forming like a union and demanding freedom. This looks like this was a big thing. See, great power can only get so great before it starts fracturing and causing incrementally increasing levels of complexity and problematic issue. This is a law of any universe. This is actually realistic. You can only have so much power before it starts to get very, very complicated to manage that power. And the same is true in D&D. And as a GM, all I do is think, what's the most common sense negative repercussion of this? And if you think and you ask yourself that question, that is going to come up and that's going to be very, very clear very quickly. As I've stated with the Coffeelock, Warlock, and Sorcerer, there are 2 different avenues to pursue that I think would make it. The truth of the matter is that if a player were to run that in my campaign, they actually probably wouldn't make it. If they really abused it and pushed it, those negative repercussions would end up catching up to them. And it would actually probably end up in they would end up creating their own arc of them just dealing with the issues that came about as the result of them abusing the system. They might end up getting banished to the weave of magic and time, or they might end up having to face a warlock from the past who's jealous and has come through time to fight them because they realize that they're standing out in a way that is threatening to overshadow them. They might come to have to face a dragon who has noticed their proclivity for great spellcasting and has decided they want to end them just for glory's sake. They might have to face bands of adventurers who are out to seek them out because they're becoming like a BBEG of their own. The repercussions, there are so many possibilities. And as the player role plays, how are they going to hide it? How are they going to hide the power they're amassing? Even the other player characters are likely going to take note. And unless there's a grand, complex conspiracy to hide that power or to keep it under wraps, it's going to get out, and that's going to come with some negative repercussions. So at the end of the day, this kind of thing makes me laugh. And actually, I think it's so much fun when players play this, not because I want to punish players, but because at my table, it's actually a very brave player who tries something like this because they know from experience that with great power comes great responsibility, and that with great power comes great opportunity for incrementally increasing disaster, the magnitude of power of which continues to increase as you increase the brokenness of your character. And so there is a downside to trying to sprint past the party in terms of power level. I've had many players try it, and I've had many players say at the end of it, that was a great run. It was short-lived and probably deserved. And that's the truth of it. And that's how it is. And I feel like in the natural world, these things balance. And in the D&D world, in my D&D world, these things balance as well. So there you go. There are my 2 cents on the Coffeelock issue. This was such a fun question. Thank you so much for answering or for asking this. And I had so much fun answering it because this is not a new thing to me. And to be really honest, if tomorrow I had a player say, I'm running a Coffeelock, Warlock and Sorcerer, I would like crack my knuckles and say, oh, I'm so excited. Like I would be so excited for this because it's like the role play, the drama, the nonsense, the shenanigans is going to be so crazy good. And it's like, I can tell already this is going to be an epic campaign. Like I can tell already. And so that's like my energy about it. And I feel like that's also partly why I have had characters run these types of things so often, and why I so much more often have players not try to run things like this, because they understand, like in my games, that it doesn't usually come with a win. All right. That's all I have to say on this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. I am trying very hard to get to 5,000 subscribers. I reached 2,000 very recently, and I'm working my way to 5,000. And just like a lowly Warlock Sorcerer who's trying to gain infinite levels of spell slots, I'm trying to get to 5,000 subs. So if you would help me out by giving me a thumbs up and a subscribe, that would make me so happy. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And with that, I will see you fine folks on the next one. I'm here almost every day creating videos about what I think is the best game in the world, D&D. So I will see you on the next one.